It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the Coach Perry, and Pat, the Shot Caller Flaherty. Here we go.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports, a weekly sports talk show. We got 10 sports topics of some of the hottest subject matters in sports across the globe. Great to have you with us, folks. I am Pat, the Shot Caller Flaherty, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Brandon, the Coach Perry. Brandon, thank you so much to you and Coach Duarte last week. The Coach's Corner show last week was amazing. I hope folks get to our subscription section of YouTube. Go to Comeback Sports, subscribe, go to our channel. Check out all the segments from last week's show because it was an outstanding show with Brandon and Coach Duarte getting after it. So, Brandon, great job last week, buddy.
Appreciate that, Pat, and big welcome back to you, of course. Welcome back. You're a huge part of the show. We're glad to have you back. And I want to give a big shout out to Brian Chance as well. Brian Chance is one of our new subscribers. And he was on our Ohtani clip, and guess what? We got some more Ohtani for you tonight. So welcome aboard this crazy train that we call Comeback Sports.
Yeah, buddy, it's great. New subscribers, as always, and folks, if you're watching, you haven't subscribed yet, go to Comeback Sports on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, check out all the videos we put forth since we started the show. A lot of good segments. Our producer, Ben Kudo, cuts up the segments into the individual subject matters that we talk about. He does a great job, so make sure you check those out along with subscribing and along with tuning in to all the live shows we put out as well. We're going to kick things off here tonight with topic number one, and it is Luka lights the playoffs up. Luka Doncic, even though Dallas lost to the Clippers in the first round, Luka Doncic was amazing in this playoff series. This guy has been so good to start off his career, and he's been averaging 35 points per game. I can't believe a guy who's had this little playoff experience is doing the things that he's doing. It's just incredible what he's been doing out on the floor, Brandon. What do you think of Luka's performance again this postseason?
Yeah, man. First off, I'm a huge fan of Luka. Love this kid. Love seeing him play. And we had an earlier topic on this show called Luka No Likey. Well, I think this one should be Luka Likey. Luka Likey the playoffs, because I mean, he has just been absolutely lighting it up in the playoffs. Youngest player ever to average 35 points per game in a playoff series and in a playoff stretch. And I mean, the NBA has been around for a long time with a lot of great players. I'm wearing one of his jerseys right now, and he didn't even do that at that age. So it just shows how good Luka Doncic really is. And I've always talked about it that I saw this coming from this kid. I've been tweeting about this kid since he entered the NBA. He is a special talent, a generational talent. And I'm sure the people from Europe obviously know that. And I've talked about it. You know, he came from the Euro League. And in my opinion, the Euro League is the second best basketball league in the world behind the NBA. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, why isn't the G League the second best league? No, the G League really isn't that good, to be honest. The Euro League is a lot better. You get a lot of retired NBA players that go over there, and the Euro players are extremely talented. We get a lot of them that come over here to eventually play in the NBA. And at this point, the kid was the MVP of the Euro League when he was 19 years old. He's been playing professional ball since he was about 15 or 14 years old. So he's really seasoned. He's a veteran at this point, but it's crazy because he's still a young superstar. But, man, just really fun guy to watch, been tearing it up. But honestly, I am not surprised that he was tearing it up and averaging that many points per game and setting that record.
Yeah, this guy eyes well beyond years. You mentioned he played over in Europe. Even though it's a lesser competition than the NBA, you're playing against men. So when he was 16 or 17, because you can play even that young in these European leagues, he was playing against big boys. So he wasn't going to blow by any of those guys. He wasn't going to outmuscle those guys. So you see Doncic's game, it's very crafty. He knows where to get, he knows to get to his spots on the floor. He can shoot. He can still develop an even better three-point shot. But he knows how to get to his spots. He knows where to go. He knows how to find angles. He knows how to get to the rim using his, intelligence and angles, and just knows how to play the game. I know that's that's a cliche thing to say about a lot of great basketball players, but he just knows what he's doing out there at a very young age. I know folks compared him to Larry Bird just by the way he plays the game. He might even, be a little more crafty than Bird was, if you can think of that, because Bird was incredibly crafty. But he's just a man among, well, like I said, he played against men. So I think he's just learned how to do that so young, whereas when another player who maybe plays in college basketball in the United States, they're playing against other teenagers. So there's kind of the difference there. When you see these guys succeeding over in Europe and in other parts of the world as youngsters, and then they get drafted in the NBA and they're good right away, you wonder if more young guys, 18, 19-year-olds are going to go over to Europe rather than to play college basketball here in the United States. But, yeah, Luka scoring 35 points a game is amazing. I wish they could have won that series. I do think the Clippers are probably a better overall team, so I think they were the ones that should have won that series. Kawhi Leonard, he turned it on late in the series, and that's why they were able to advance to the second round. But Luka, made it a tough series for the Clippers. And, I'm sure Dallas is going to make a big move this offseason. I don't think Porzingis is going to be there by the time the season starts next year. So I'm hoping, as a fan of Luka and a fan of his game, I hope Dallas is able to make a move or sign a player that they can bring in to pair with Luka and get to that second round or get to the Western Conference Finals. The West is tough, but I think Luka with another star that's a little more consistent than Porzingis will really get it done.
No, I agree. I mean, first off, maybe you should be called the coach because you bring up a lot of great points about how he plays, and he is very skilled, very crafty, knows exactly what to do. And I guess that brings up what I brought up earlier about him just being a veteran at such a young age and just kind of knowing everything to do. And no matter the situation, he's got an answer for it, or he's got a skill that he can show off. And I think even recently his long range game, shooting the three, has been so much improved over the last few years. So he's even still developing his game, which is, I think, scary for other NBA players because he's been so good already. And then the second point you bring up is, can they pair up somebody to play alongside of him? Rumor has it recently that Porzingis is not happy playing alongside of him, which I don't know why you wouldn't be. This kid's one of the best players in the NBA and is going to get you open shots. I think Porzingis is the type of player that kind of needs all the light shined on him, especially coming out of New York City. He kind of still feels like he needs all that light on him. But honestly, you're the second best player on the team now. And so you got to kind of act like that and actually be a team player and go along with that and play your role on the team. But I think you're right. I think Porzingis is probably out the door. So it's who can they get to replace him to play alongside this kid. And I know most recently they also asked him, hey, you're going to be on the market. Is Dallas going to sign you to a supermax deal this offseason and in the summer? And his answer was, it. So expect him to sign that supermax deal, which is going to be a big, big, big deal that we will cover over the summer to stay in Dallas. But let's see who they can get alongside of him. But let's move on to topic number 2. And me and Coach Duarte talked a little bit about Christian Pulisic last week and about how he just came off the Champions League win. Well, now Christian Pulisic has led U.S. men's soccer to beating our rival Mexico in the CONCACAF Cup to take home a big title. And I think that's huge in the soccer world and huge for the United States.
Absolutely. Well, U.S. men's soccer has not had a lot of good publicity these last couple decades. I mean, they haven't qualified for the Olympics in 12 years. So that's 3 different times where they didn't qualify for the Olympics. They also didn't qualify for the World Cup in 2018. And that the not qualifying for the Olympics for 3 straight tries hasn't happened in the last 50 years. So, and then missing the World Cup. We here locally, we've seen Taylor Twellman's rant saying, what are we doing in U.S. men's soccer and their program? A lot of folks have talked about how now that there's some young talent that's really being developed in the U.S. men's soccer program finally. So they're getting that influx of youth and talent into the program, and maybe the 2022 Cup is where they can set their sights on. But, it's just good to have positive news for this men's soccer team because for so long it's been such a disappointment with this program. They just haven't been there. And, I remember in 2008 when they were playing in the World Cup, and they certainly weren't favorites, but it was just fun to see them in the World Cup. and then in the Olympics, and then now when they haven't been in the World Cup for so long, and they haven't been in the Olympics in even longer, it's just you're losing the interest among American fans. So American soccer fans got to be happy about something like this. You know, that they beat Mexico, who's usually good. So you have this exciting finish, penalty kick winner in extra time. That's got to be a big boost to the popularity of the U.S. men's soccer team.
I mean, yeah, man, huge. And beating a team that normally takes us to the woodshed, to be honest. Mexico normally just hangs us out to dry pretty much every time we play them. And especially over the last, I'd say 15 to 20 years, Mexico has just treated us like a doormat. So to beat them in the CONCACAF final in Denver, you know, in the United States, I think is huge. Like you said, huge for the sport in the United States, but huge for the men's team, showing that, hey, they can still get it done. But I think you're right. I mean, I think they have to step up and qualify for a World Cup and qualify for an Olympics, because in soccer, that is the big stage. You know, Champions League is up there, obviously. And we just talked about how Christian Pulisic got a taste of that, but that's only one American. So it's really one of those things where, yeah, World Cup and the Olympics are the biggest stage for men's and women's soccer. You know, the women's team in the United States has routinely got it done, but the men's team has routinely lagged behind. But it is a good moment for them to see that hopefully we are making strides to catch up to the women's team, and to be able to just put ourselves on the world map, because, man, we obviously know we've got great, talented athletes here in the United States. So to have our soccer stars be put on the map would be great. But I've got to give a big shout out to Christian Pulisic again. In 10 days, winning the Champions League final, first American ever to do that, first ever American ever to play in a Champion League final and then to win it. And then here, 10 days later, winning the CONCACAF final against rival Mexico, and also scoring an amazing goal on penalty kicks. I believe he scored the deciding goal, I believe. So big shout out to Christian Pulisic, man. Keep doing what you're doing, putting us on the map. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do going forward.
Yeah, I think that's what's the best men's soccer program? Where do they go from here? You know, and how can they continue to get better so that they can break this terrible losing streak they're on of qualifying for the World Cup and the Olympics? And I think that is going to change. It seems like it's trending in the right direction. So good news there for United States soccer fans on the men's. So moving on to our next topic is topic number 3, F1 racing out in Baku over the weekend. And huge controversy here. You had 2 top races, Max Verstappen, who's been at the top of the standings lately, and then also Stroll from Aston Martin. They both blew out the right rear tire on the same stretch of track.
Yep.
Both of them in the same place. So now there's this controversy about what actually happened to these tires. The tire manufacturer is trying to figure out exactly what happened. Brandon, what do you think of this whole situation?
I mean, it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. But first off, big ups to Baku. We were talking about it on the last show about this was going to be big for the country of Azerbaijan, but big for the city of Baku. And it was the first time F1 had been back there since 2019. And I think they put on a great show, honestly. I think the track was well maintained and was ready to go. It looked amazing. The city looked amazing. They had amazing weather. So it was a great F1 weekend. So big ups to Baku. But yeah, I don't know, big problems for Pirelli, honestly, going into this. I mean, having those 2 blowouts, and I hope producer Ben shows the videos of these 2 crashes, because they were at such high speeds on the fastest part of the track, literally. In Baku, this is the longest straight in F1, so you're hitting probably the highest speeds you are on the calendar. And that's when the tire blew out for both of these guys, for Lance Stroll from Aston Martin, and then for Max Verstappen, while Max Verstappen was leading the race for Red Bull. So it was just amazing. Both the crashes were, like, I'm telling you, high speed, and just one of those things where you're like, man, is he all right? Is he going to be okay? And this is Max Verstappen's crash, where I think Max Verstappen did an amazing job of just controlling it and keeping it into the sidewall after he made contact. I mean, he had a little point where he got squirrely with the wheel, but believe it or not, I think that's the point where it saved him right there. I think that was the part. It was probably debris that caused both of these incidents, But I don't know, man. When you look at these tires, here's Lance Stroll's impact, much, much harder shunt into the wall. But when you look at more of an issue of wear, and they both happen around the same time, Lance Stroll had put about 30 laps on his tires. Max Verstappen was just getting into that range of putting the laps on his tires, and they both had the rear blowout on the same part of the track, a very dangerous moment for both of them. So good to see them both walk away healthy and not harmed. But yeah, I don't know. Big questions for
along the same stretch of track. I also read that Lewis Hamilton had an issue with one of his tires as well. So, you know, and I believe he rides on Pirelli also. So, was there actual debris on the track? But like you said, everybody was saying whenever there's an issue with a tire, the tire company's always just going to say, "Oh, there's debris on the track." That's just like their go-to, you know. So, you know, it's hard to tell. Better look into this situation. So, and going back to Verstappen too, you know, I'm not sure what his lead was in the standings going into the race, but now it's only 4 points. Now, if he even just finishes, he's in a better situation. Or if he finishes in the top 10, he's at least getting points. In this situation, he didn't finish at all, and never mind the fact that he was leading. So that just hurts him right there. And you know, because he doesn't finish the race, that's got to be just a kick to the groin, basically, when you're thinking about your situation. If you're Red Bull and Max Verstappen, because now you're not extending your lead. You're not even hanging on to the lead that you have. You're now losing a lot of ground in the point standings, and that's why he was kicking his tire right there. So that's got to be so frustrating for him.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was at that moment, he literally thought he was going to go down a lot of points in the championship because Lewis Hamilton was driving on and was in P2 at the time. And luckily for him, I mean, producer Ben's showing it, Lewis Hamilton had a brake issue and heated up his brakes too much with a little preheat. And then they locked up going into turn one. And so Perez, who went on to win the race and got himself a big haul of points, and a big haul of points for Red Bull, who are currently leading the constructors. So, I mean, it was a big hit for Mercedes that day, as I'm a Mercedes fan. I haven't hid that from anybody. And I'm going to tell you, I was once I saw Max Verstappen climb out of the car and that he was safe, I was excited, honestly, because I thought now Lewis Hamilton was going to go on, possibly win the race and get this big haul of points. But then Lewis has the lockup going into turn one, and I, like millions of other fans around the world, looked, then it was just tire debris when it was the exact same tire on the exact same stretch of road. And man, I'm telling you, there was one thing that came out that back in the day, F1 used to use Goodyear tires, good old American Goodyear tires. And one of the people said, I don't know if you'd be seeing all these blowouts if they were still riding on Goodyears. So Pirelli's got to step up because people are already asking those questions. So if you want to be the main tire provider, Pirelli, you got to start doing a lot better, and you got to start answering questions here a lot better when we have big shunts and big accidents like this. But just to end this topic, I want to go back to Lance Stroll's accident. If Producer Ben, if you can bring up Lance Stroll's accident really quick, I'm telling you, that was a bigger shunt than Max Verstappen's, where I was thinking, oh man, like what is going to happen here? Because there were so many other cars running close to him on that backstretch looking to get a slipstream. And you could even see Lance Stroll immediately get on the radio and say, whoa, 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 red flag, meaning please stop the race. Stop the race, because that's what a red flag means. A red flag means all the drivers have to slow down and the race is pretty much stopped. And that's because Lance Stroll was in such a vulnerable position on that track. It was risk a big crash. So Pirelli's really got to answer for those because it's a safety issue at this point. But yeah, like I said, a big shout out to Lance Stroll for, walking away from that and immediately getting on the radio and asking for the red flag to not only protect himself, but to protect the other drivers as well. But moving on to topic number 4, and this is a big topic, and it's going to get heated up over the summer. Dame's destination. Dame time, baby. Dame time. And I always love doing that on this show. Dame Lillard is one of my favorite players. And man, it looks like he's going to be a free agent. I sincerely doubt he goes back to Portland. But, I mean, what do you think is going to happen with him on the free agent market this summer?
All right. Well, as you throw cold water on this whole situation, I think he is going back to Portland. They can. I think now in the NBA, just because you sign a long-term deal doesn't mean you can't be moved to another team later on. We've seen players do this. You've seen Harden. We've seen Paul George. We've seen several players just say, I want to leave. I'm under contract, but I don't want to be here anymore. So they make a move. So I think Lillard's going to sign his deal. It's going to be I think the projection is 4 years, 176. It looks like it's going to be about 39 the first year, 42 the second year, 45 the third year, and then 48 million and change the fourth year. I love Dame Lillard. He's got that scowl, that attitude, and of course he's an awesome player. He's hit game winners. They just, unfortunately, Portland hasn't really advanced that far in the playoffs. Losing Nurkic a couple of times to injury really hurts. He loves playing with CJ McCollum. But McCollum's not always, healthy either. I mean, he was banged up a lot this past year. But I think the thing with Lillard is, number one, he knows he's the man in Portland. He's the guy there. And Portland loves him. And Portland's got this thing where it's like they call themselves like the weird city or whatever it is. And they're one of those cities that embrace Dame Lillard so much. They have really good fans. They're the only game in town. They're the only sport in town. There's no other Portland professional sports in the big four major sports. And then on top of that, he likes playing with CJ McCollum. So, he's from Oakland, California. So he's from that West Coast area. He went to Weber State, which is in Utah. So I don't see him making a shift to the East Coast. I don't see him going to the Lakers or anything like that. Because then if he goes to the Lakers, he's possibly the third best player on the team. He is the third best player on the team, but the other two guys are healthy. So you're going to put him ahead of Anthony Davis. So that's fair. That's what he has to consider as well. So do you want to be the main attraction when people go and watch a Portland Trail Blazers game? Do you love being there? He's 30. I think he's going to be 31 to start next season. So it depends on what he wants. Does he want to try to contend for a title with Portland, which I think he can do if they make another move or two? Or do you want to go somewhere else where maybe you're not the top guy, but maybe you're almost guaranteed a title? Because, the whole Brooklyn Nets situation, they look so good right now, and Harden's not even playing, that, players are trying to think about, can I do this with another franchise? So to me, looking at Lillard, I think he's going to stay in Portland. But there's going to be a bidding war for him. There's going to be some offers out there, and he's certainly going to – I'm sure he'll go on that free agency, tour where they wine and dine him. He meets all the celebrities in the different towns and meets players and coaches and general managers. So we'll see how that all goes. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to re-sign with the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the city of Portland loves hearing that. So if you're from the city of Portland, give us a like on this video and give us a subscribe, because he's talking about Dame Lillard sticking in town. And guess what? I'm going to talk about Dame Lillard leaving town. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here and go the opposite direction here, where I think it's time for Dame Lillard to pack his bags and go to another franchise. And I say this because I love CJ McCollum. Please don't knock me on here like Trailblazer fans or CJ McCollum himself, because I think CJ is an NBA star. And when he's healthy and on the court, they are a dynamic duo. But I just don't think that they can win a title together. And I think they've had the stretch where they've tried to here. And like you said, they can't even really get out of the first or second round. Generally, it's the first round that they're knocked out of. And I think Dame Lillard is just kind of sick of it. And I think it's really one of those things where even right after they lost on Instagram, he had a little cryptic message saying, what does loyalty get me? Meaning, I've stuck around Portland and I haven't really got much of anything except fat contracts and a lot of money, which obviously we can't deny that. That's a great thing. But at some point, these $1 million or possibly $1 billion athletes are looking to win a championship, because guess what? That's even bigger for their brand going forward. Like I said, Bill Russell's sitting at home with his 11 championship rings talking about who wants an autograph for $1 million or whatever it may be, because he is the big champion, right? So when you get all these championship rings, I mean, you're pretty much set for life. I mean, going forward, right? I mean, so it's just really one of those things where I think a championship is good for everyone's brand. And I think, the big three, it's been happening over the last, 5 years and maybe even the last decade in the NBA, where they've been developing big threes. So here's what I say. I think you brought it up. LA is one of the possible options. going to join LeBron. I'm pretty sure LeBron's going to be on a recruiting hunt this summer to get another superstar to come into LA so he can try to win another title for his brand, especially because I think he is still one of the best players in the NBA and one of the greatest players of all time. So another championship will definitely help solidify that with him. And with him and Anthony Davis together, like you said, two of the best players in the NBA. If you put Dame Lillard in the mix, you definitely have a big three that can contend with any team in the NBA, including this Brooklyn Nets team. But the other team that I'd like to see him go to, we're going to talk about, and it's a local, so you might want to call me a homer, but I would love to see him come to Boston. I would love to see him team up, little summer bug in my face there. I would love to see him team up with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as the Boston Big Three. And here's what I say to that. Like, man, yeah, that is so sweet to say, right? Here's what I say to that. I think if he comes to Boston, I think he is the man here. I think he would instantly become the leader of the team. He's got more experience. He's the one that you want the ball in his hands. He's going to hit those game-winning shots. So, man, if I'm the Boston Celtics, if I'm now the new GM, I'm looking to how I can make a move with my roster. And I was saying it last week. I would trade anybody on this roster that I needed to except Robert Williams, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. I would trade everybody else on this roster to make an upgrade so we can go to try to chase down the 18th championship for this Boston Celtics franchise. So it's one of those things where, man, Dame Lillard, if Dame Lillard's on the market, you have got to make a move for him, even if it's an unsuccessful one, because you might not get another chance for another 5-6 years, or like you said, you might sign a 4-year deal. But I think you're right. He does have the chance to stay in Portland, and you might see a sign and trade, or like I said, you might see him go to LA or Boston. I would prefer him to go to Boston, obviously.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't just sign him. They don't have cap space, so they would sign and trade. They'd have to include, I think, Kemba Walker in the deal. I don't know why Portland would want Kemba Walker. We're going to talk about him later on in the show as well. But so that's going to be tough for the Celtics. It might have to be, like you said, a sign and trade. That might have to include a third team. They obviously have some of that trade exception left over from this offseason. I think it's about $10 million. If Evan Fournier leaves, I believe they can still use 17 because that's what his contract was. You just can't use the 17 and 10 together. Same thing with the Lakers. I don't think they necessarily have the cap space to just sign him. So if he does go somewhere else, like you're saying, and it's a place he wants to go, I think it's going to have to be via sign a trade and not necessarily sign a max deal with somebody. And again, Portland has his bird rights, so they have a leg up. They can offer him more money because of the CBA and how the bird rights work. So it's going to be very interesting. The Celtics have also signed point guards. I mean, they signed Kemba Walker. He's a plus 30 point guard, and he's smaller. He's a lot smaller than Lillard, but Lillard's not a big guy either. And teams are starting to look at these smaller point guards in the NBA, and they're starting to break down when they get older. Luckily, Chris Paul is holding it together right now, but we've seen him get injured later on in the season. He's not 100% healthy for the Suns right now. So those type of players, even though they're unbelievable players, those smaller point guards are starting to break down. So that's going to enter into the minds of some of these other teams as well. Even though Dame is such a great player, do you want to do that? Before we move on to our next topic, folks, make sure take a look at the bottom of the screen. You call in to our show. We will pick up your phone call. If you want to ask a question, you want to drop a point, you want to correct anything we're saying, if you have some information that we either messed up or we didn't get in there, make sure to call us. We'd love to hear from you. If you're a subscriber, even if you're not, call into the show. Let us know what you're thinking about any of these sports topics or any sports topics that you want to think of right at the moment. Moving on to topic number 5, the Red Sox sweep the New York Yankees over the weekend. The hated New York Yankees. Yes, we are Red Sox fans. We're going to say it. Yankees. It was interesting. Everybody's take on this, too, was like the Red Sox just kind of dominated the series. The Red Sox don't have elite starting pitching. But somehow, because of their bats and they play pretty good defense, they were able to beat the Yankees, who don't necessarily have the starting pitching either. I know Garrett Cole is a very talented pitcher. He's got some issues right now with foreign substance possibilities, but we'll see if that continues. But it just seemed like the Red Sox were just a much better team right now. Both these teams will make moves at the trade deadline, which is still a ways away, but right now it seems like the Red Sox are just ahead of the Yankees. What do you think, Brady?
I enjoyed watching this, and I'll always enjoy watching the Red Sox sweep the Yankees. And you New York Yankees can cry me a river, and all you fans can cry me a river, or you'll probably have some expletives to throw out because that's normally your thing that you do. But I enjoyed watching Verdugo hammer the crap out of this team, man. And especially in that rain game when he blasted that home run in the rain with his Cuban links chain. Like I said, I think Alex Verdugo is the next star of this team, and he was really playing like it. But I'm telling you, yeah, man, they are getting on a streak here. And if they can continue it going over the summer, I think you'll see a great Red Sox team maybe going into the playoffs. But if they can continue to sweep the Yankees, I don't care if they lose every other game, because I just want to see them continue to sweep the Yankees, because that's so much fun. And the Boston and New York rivalry will go down forever. And trust me, I have respect for the New York teams. I have respect for the New York fans, because our rivalry is so intense. That's what makes it so sweet, and the competition so sweet in itself. So, and just like the Bruins series we're going to talk about later, man, that rivalry is so intense, and we enjoy it. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, as a Boston fan, I really enjoyed watching this happen. But I think the Celtics, I'm sorry, not the Celtics. They're playing horribly. They're done. See you later. They're sitting at home. I'd have to say the Red Sox are playing really well right now. And I think that series was really one of the moments to show that, hey, they're really getting it together with this roster.
Yeah, no question. First of all, now the Red Sox are 5 games up on the Yankees in the standings. The biggest thing, though, with the Sox, though, is they're a game and a half still behind Tampa Bay. As good as the Red Sox have been playing, the Rays have been playing that much better, and they're still at the top of the standings. And the Rays lost Blake Snell in the offseason to free agency, a Cy Young, a winning pitcher, and they're still at the top of the AL East, which is a tough division. The Yankees are in third place. They're 3 games over 500. So, this is going to be a tough division throughout the season. Like I said, the Yankees will make a move at some point to try to either add pitching or maybe add a bat, because neither one has been as good as they want it to be. Some of their hitters are starting to heat up a little bit, but over the weekend, it was the Red Sox, just sort of dominating the Yankees. So I'm sure that'll, put a fire into the Yankees front office too, and they're going to make a move, and things could change. But just to see how good the Red Sox played over the weekend, and they've continued it this week too, that was great to see. You can just see this, just a difference in the two organizations right now. In the past, there was times where the Red Sox were dominated by the Yankees, in a stretch, and the Red Sox looked like they were just inferior to New York. Looked differently this weekend, so that was great to see. And a lot of different guys contributing to the series as well for the Red Sox, especially with the bats. Xander Bogaerts has been on a little bit of a slump, or at least he was. And then later on in the weekend, he had some huge hits in extra innings. He kind of got back on his horse a little bit in that series too. So, but Devers, who's always the Yankee killer, was great. You mentioned Verdugo. Nathan Eovaldi always seems to pitch well against the Red Sox. He did over the weekend. So, yeah, just a huge series sweep for the Sox.
Yeah, man. Like I said, we will continue to enjoy that, and I'm sure the Yankees will have a little something waiting for us the next time we play them. But we'll have to see. Hopefully the Red Sox will be even stronger at that point as well. But let's move on to topic number 6. And hey, we love Japan. We love Japan. If you're one of our viewers from Japan, give us a like here. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow on Twitter. I would love a follower from Japan on Twitter. But yeah, man, we love Japan, and we love Japan's young superstar, Shohei Ohtani. So we have this new thing on the show called the Ohtani Tracker, and we're busting it out tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Tracker. This guy is so much fun to watch. You can tell why his popularity continues to grow. Not just the fact that he's both a pitcher and a power hitter, which we just really haven't seen in a long time. He's fun to watch. He's a young superstar. And Major League Baseball, again, needs to continue to try to market these types of players. So having the Ohtani Tracker, there you can see an image of it right there, is awesome. I'm wondering if, we both love football, and I'm sure, Brandon, you've seen Red Zone, and, you can just flip over to Red Zone during the season. You can see all these teams and going into score and things like that. And it just kind of, with today's, short attention span generation. That's one thing that the NFL has done well to kind of adapt to that. They put in red zone where you can just flip to one channel and watch a bunch of games all at the same time. Baseball needs to do things like this, where they have the Ohtani tracker, or maybe they create a channel that's, called scoring position or something like that. I don't know. But they need to do stuff like this to keep the attentions of the fans because they got to get creative. Because again, like there's a lot of talent in baseball right now. There's a lot of young guys. Fernando Tatis, you got Mookie Betts, you got Ohtani. Mike Trout's been hurt still, but he'll come back at some point. He's going to be a top 5 player of all time when it's all said and done. But they need to market these guys better. So again, the Ohtani tracker, great idea. This guy gets a lot of publicity just for what he's doing out on the field. And, of course, he's from Japan. The Japanese fans love watching their players over in Major League Baseball. So this is good to grow the game. Let's make sure that Major League Baseball continues to do things like this to show off this guy.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think they're marketing him well enough at all. I mean, our last Ohtani clip is going over 900 views because we're one of the only people that's really marketing Shohei Ohtani, and people are responding. So that's why we're doing it again, because he is a superstar and he deserves all this attention right now. Like you said, not only is he stepping in the box and hitting these bombs, 17 home runs at this point, last I checked, he's also stepping on the mound. He's got a 2.76 ERA, and then he can also go and play in the outfield as well. So we have seen him in left field. I've seen him in right field as well. So this guy is a great athlete, a great superstar. So, yeah, Major League Baseball needs to be propping him up a lot more, and they're just not doing it. But, yeah, man, I mean, we're going to continue to track him because he's a superstar. Here's some stats for you. Just the other night, they played June 4th in Seattle. He pitched 6 innings, okay, gave up 4 hits, 2 runs, 2.76 ERA, okay? Over the regular season, he's now pitched 42 innings, okay? Only given up 23 hits, 15 runs, 2.76 ERA, okay? And then, like I said, he's stepping in the batter's box. I think he's hitting just shy of 300, I believe, or a little over 250, something in that range, right? And he's got 17 home runs. I mean, so it's really one of those guys that he's exciting to watch. More people are tuning into baseball to watch this guy. And like you said, I think they do need to bring in more things to grow the game and get more fans in the game. And right now, Ohtani's just doing it off of his back alone. I think Major League Baseball, like you said, they might need some. Like you said, that was a great idea with maybe the scoring zone or something. Once a hitter gets on second base, let's tune in and let's see what happens for the next hitter that comes up. Because I think that could be something where they have like a special channel, or, hey, cut into Ohtani like we're going to be doing. Cut into Mike Trout, cut into all these other superstars, and just let us watch them for maybe an inning or two. Because I think that's really what's going to bring more eyes to baseball. And currently, Japan's superstar, Shohei Ohtani, is the man doing it. So like I said, Japan, thank you for bringing us this superstar. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate all your views. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, and thank you for giving us the superstar, Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Third in Major League Baseball with 17 homers. You mentioned before the show, Brandon, he hit a 470-foot homer earlier this week, I believe. It might have even been yesterday. So, The guy hit bombs, but he's also a great pitcher. So, he's got, multiple skill set. He plays in the outfield, like you said. That's pretty cool that he can do all those types of things. Very interesting player to follow. He's batting .261 right now. Average is becoming less important. If you get on base and you hit for power, that's the most important thing. OPS is the most important stat for a hitter. Moving on to topic number 7, we're going to switch sort of the NFL, but it doesn't really, the NFL hasn't had any fault in this situation, but is it Cameron Kinley, I believe his name is, a Navy football player who was a rookie free agent signing for the Tampa Bay Bucks, was hoping to get that military school exemption where your service is delayed for, I believe, 5 years. And then you can play in the NFL. These military schools, West Point for Army, Air Force, and of course Navy down in Annapolis. They always like when their players go to the NFL or go to a professional sports league because it brings attention to their schools, and it's good publicity. It's free publicity essentially, and they get attention to their programs, and it just helps all the branches, the military branches across the board. But Cameron was denied this delay in service, so he has to go into service for the Navy right now. And I can't remember the last time this has happened. I don't know if it's been, happened, kind of behind the scenes. There were 4 other players this year from military schools who actually didn't have to do this. They actually are able to play in the NFL. The difference is they came from the different branches. They came from the Air Force and Army. So that's the thing. From what I read, that there's kind of a reason for why he's not going. Why the Navy wants to keep him, Brandon. But what are your thoughts on this situation as being a football coach and a huge football fan?
I mean, I'm really disappointed in hearing this and seeing this, honestly. I'm disappointed for the Navy, first off. I'm disappointed for Cameron Kinley as well. And I'm disappointed for the NFL because I think this kid deserves his chance to be able to play in the NFL. And he talked about how it's one of his dreams to not only play in the NFL, but also to serve his country. And he said he's not looking to dismiss his service. He knows he wants to serve his country and he is going to serve his country. He just wants to basically delay his service so he can try to play in the NFL. And we all know the average NFL career is only 4 years. And I'm sure some viewers are shocked to hear that, but that's the truth. The average NFL career is only 4 years. So he's just looking to defer his service for 5 years and see if he falls into that category. And he might even fall into a category where he plays more years. So it's just really one of those things where I think the Navy is dropping the ball right here. And I believe it's the director of the Navy that is the one that decided this. And I mean, I don't know. It's just bad publicity. You're getting bad publicity for the Navy and for Annapolis, and that's not something they need or something they deserve. It's a great school, one of the best service schools out there. And it not only serves the Navy, but it also serves the Marines. And I'm a big fan of Navy. And I don't know, I'm just really shocked that they're not allowing this young man to go ahead and live out his dream, but also to basically prop up the Navy too, and to prop up the service academy and to promote reasons of why they should attend the service academy. Now, he's applied to one of his senators, a local senator from the state of Tennessee, to get a waiver to allow him to go to rookie OTAs to basically hold off on this denial. And hopefully he gets it. And hopefully they even backtrack and actually change their decision after all the flack that they're going to get upcoming over the next few weeks, because he really deserves to be able to play. And rumor has it that the Navy coaching staff, when they recruited this kid, they promised him that he'd have a chance to go and play in the NFL and that he'd have a chance to play in the NFL. He got recruited from Vanderbilt and a few other Division I schools, and he actually said that Vanderbilt was his top choice. But he said when he looked at serving his country and that Navy still said they'd give him a chance and an opportunity to go play in the NFL, he said that it was an easy decision because he wants to do both. So it's just really one of those things where I think the Navy needs to step up, do the right thing here, clear this kid, let him go chase his dream in the NFL, let him go play for the Tampa Bay Bucks next to Tom Brady, next to the reigning Super Bowl champions. I mean, they can get a ton of publicity on this team if they just play it out right and get a ton of kids to really want to commit and come to the service academies and to come to Navy. And you brought up another great point where there 4 other players from the other service academies were granted waivers to be able to go out and live out their dreams. Why are you not letting this kid go? And I haven't really heard any legit reasoning. So, Pat, if you do know of one, I'd love to hear it. But I really haven't heard of any legit reasoning why the Navy is not letting this kid go and play. And I really hope they change their mind and they really, like I said, reconsider. Please, if you're the Navy and you're the director of the Navy, reconsider, let Cameron Kinley go and play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, please.
Yeah, the excuse that's being made is that there are a shortage of naval officers right now in the United States Navy. Now, if you go to the Navy Academy, the Naval Academy, that's where officers are taught, developed, and so forth. It's not like some people who just go into the Navy, so that's the thing. That's why these guys, I guess, are, you consider them even more highly sought after military service members because of the education they've gotten. Anytime you go to one of the service academies, you're studying to be an officer, not just a member of that branch of service. So that's supposedly the reason. Is one officer going to make that humongous difference? I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not in the position to make that call, but it just seems like the flack, like you mentioned, and the bad publicity that Navy's getting right now, you would think this would deter other young people that want to get into the Naval Academy from applying, or maybe going to the Air Force, or maybe going to West Point instead because of what's happening here. I mean, I don't think that'll happen completely, especially if this gets turned around, but I don't see why this is a good thing for the Navy. I don't understand why they did this, and this just doesn't seem right, and it just seems weird that they would even think that this would be okay. You know, Joe Cardona, who's the long snapper for the Patriots, he was at Navy. Patriots actually drafted him, and then what he did was that he first got the deferral, and then he started giving his military service, you know, during the off season as a naval reserve. So he was able to do his service in a different manner rather than just being with the Navy the year round. You know, so I gotta think they can work something out like that where this kid can go do that and then also still play in the NFL. You know, I don't know if it's because he wasn't drafted, but there's been plenty of undrafted guys from the service academies who have still gone to the NFL. So it just seems weird. It just seems like there's something. Maybe it was a panic move by this director of the Navy or whatever was the consensus amongst not allowing this kid to play in the NFL. But clearly this is a bad move. Hopefully they rectify it for the kid's sake.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a bad move, and they need to rectify it ASAP and immediately. With all this bad publicity, they're just going to keep getting more of it, I guarantee you. And it's just one of those things where you brought up a great point with Joe Cardona. I believe he won 2 or 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots, right? And so it's just one of those things where that was great publicity. And I'm telling you, every time we've seen Joe Cardona locally or in an interview, he was either wearing a Navy sweatshirt, a Navy shirt, talking about his time at the Naval Academy and in the services. That's the same thing that Cameron Kinley said he's going to do. So it's just really one of those things where I think they've got a lot more to gain here if they let this kid play out his dreams. But if they don't, then they're going to lose a ton going forward. And yeah, I don't think we want to see that for the Navy or for even Cameron Kinley. So it's like, I hope they really change their mind here and let him play. But moving on, we're going to move on to a big topic tonight. Topic number 8, Julio. We talked about Julio possibly going to the Titans on this show a couple weeks ago, and we talked about him possibly going to a few other teams, but it landed that he ended up going to the Tennessee Titans. They were the ones who ended up pulling the trigger and making the trade happen. What do you think this is going forward for the Tennessee Titans and for the league?
Yeah, I think this makes sense. I mean, they're always going to be able to run the ball. You got Derrick Henry. They always seem to have a good offensive line. You know, Mike Vrabel's obviously a defensive type of coach. So they needed some explosiveness on this offense. I love A.J. Brown. He's, you know, a Pro Bowl type of receiver. He's the only one that really brings explosive plays to this team. The one other guy that in the passing game that maybe brought a little bit of explosiveness was Jonnu Smith, who just left in free agency to go to the Patriots. So they needed another, you know, outside receiver, and they can move Jones into the slot and everything. You can move Jones all around the field because he's just unbelievable. But you add him to A.J. Brown and then a power running game where you're going to be able to run the ball between the tackles with just an absolute monster in Derrick Henry, and then have 2 outside receivers to go down the field with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I think that their offensive possibilities are endless. You know, Tannehill's got the arm to get it down there. Julio wants to be more of a downfield threat later on in his career, so that's what they're going to try to do, I would imagine, with Julio and with A.J. Brown. And then you have that running game, and, you know, the Titans are also, you got to remember, they've lost to Kansas City. They've lost to some of the teams in the AFC where they've gotten outscored. Even though they've had good defenses, sometimes you just get outscored. They haven't been able to be explosive enough to stay with those teams. I think that's why they're looking at this, and that's why they made the move for Julio Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good move for them. I think obviously a lot of teams were trying to get into the Julio Jones sweepstakes, and they were just the team that won out. They gave up the proper price. I believe it was a 2nd-round draft pick. And I think that is the proper price for Julio Jones. I honestly would have tried to give up a 1st-round draft pick for him because we've talked about how sometimes these draft picks don't pan out, but Julio Jones is arguably one of the best receivers of all time. So I think this is the price is right, definitely for Tennessee. And I think, you already had a playoff team, and now they've just become even more dangerous, adding one of the best receivers in the NFL. And it's really one of those things where in football, the pass opens up the run and the run opens up the pass. So now they've got plenty of options, like you said, where they've got King Henry, who's just coming off a 2,000-yard season with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. But now you've got a great pairing and arguably possibly the best duo of wide receivers in the NFL now with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Like you said, you can put them each on one side, or, hey, you can put them both on one side, put one of them in the slot and see what happens, because they're just both so talented. You can move them around wherever you want, and they can line up and slot them wherever you want. But, yeah, I mean, an offensive team that just got so much more talented with the addition of Julio Jones, I think it just brings up so many more options for the coaching staff and for the offensive coordinator. And, yeah, they're going to be able to stretch the field. They're going to be able to stretch the field a lot more. I'm expecting to see Tannehill throw a few bombs downfield to just even test to see if Julio can still has it and still go deep, which he definitely does. He's still got it, and he can still go deep. So if you're an NFL cornerback, be prepared for Tannehill throwing the bomb to both A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. But what that's going to do is when they are throwing the bomb, they're going to have to respect that. They're going to have to back up and not play 8 in the box. And then we just give the ball to King Henry, and he runs for another 2,000 yards. So, man, yeah, the endless options that this offense now has, and it's, like I said, a playoff team that I think has now gotten stronger. Hopefully they've filled their holes to be able to go further in the playoffs. I think that they definitely have. But it's just really one of those things where I don't know if they have enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who actually fill their holes on the offensive line this offseason as well to protect Patrick Mahomes. So it's just really one of those things where undoubtedly this helps the Tennessee Titans and makes them a better football team. I just do not know if it makes them a contender.
Yeah, that's a good question. It certainly gives them a leg up. Their defense still has to get better than it was last year. So we'll see if that happens. But I do think this does add an element to that team, and it's going to be very interesting coming into the season how they're going to use both him and A.J. Brown. I can't imagine trying to defend the Titans in the red zone when you have to try to stop Derrick Henry, but then you two have these two monster receivers on the outside, and Brown and Julio Jones. It's going to be a lot to defend in the red zone. That's going to be I think they're going to score a lot of touchdowns in Tennessee is what I'm thinking. We're going to move on to topic number 9. It's a very important topic going on right now because it's the Bruins who are in Game 6 of the second round of the NHL playoffs against the New York Islanders. And they got to win tonight because if they win, they're done. They're down 3-2. Right now, the Bruins are actually losing 2-1, 8 minutes left in the second period. So still a ton of time left. But if you're the Bruins right now, this is not if you're a Bruins fan like we are, it's not a great feeling. Game 4, they just seemed really flat. They just seemed like they didn't come out. They just had an off night. Game 5, they scored that awesome one-timer with Pasternak, and you're thinking that this is going to be the game where they regain control of the series. They're at home. Then there was a situation where Marchand actually thought he scored right around the net, and then it didn't go in. He started to celebrate, and then he realized that the goal didn't go in. And then from then on, the Islanders kind of took control of the game, actually went up by 3 goals before the Bruins came charging back and almost tied it up at the end of Game 5. So, Brandon, what are we thinking right now? What do the Bruins have to do to try to, somehow take back control of this series, win Game 6?
Well, first off, yeah, disappointing hearing that current line that you just said and the current score that's going on. They have really got to wake up because this is obviously a do-or-die situation game tonight. And, man, I mean, we were expecting a little bit more out of Rask. I think he's got to step it up in these last few minutes of this period and the third period because he just hasn't really looked the same since, I want to say, Game 2 or 3. Everything's kind of changed in the net and in between the pipes. And obviously that's huge when we're talking about professional hockey. But first, 2 things here. Producer Ben, move the topic down. Quit sleeping on us. You're still on topic number 8. And then second off, I think it's really one of those things where, man, yeah, like I think they've had all the options to get out and get ahead in this series and just really haven't gotten it done. I know Bruce Cassidy has been really mindful of the refereeing, and I kind of have to agree with him. I don't think that the Bruins have gotten any calls, and trust me, I'm not using that as an excuse, but I don't think they have gotten many calls. I think the power plays have been pretty much one-sided in this series, and even just in the last game, the Islanders scored 3 of their goals off the power play, and the Bruins, I don't believe, had any. So it's just really one of those things where I don't blame him, and I honestly think what he said about the referees, it got him fined $25,000. I don't think he should have got fined. I think he could have said much worse things. You know, I honestly say, you know, they want to talk about the referees. A lot of people want to call them zebras. I think a zebra is a beautiful creature and a nice, beautiful striped horse. So I don't ever want to put referees in comparison with a beautiful zebra. I like calling referees and officials skunks because they tend to stink up the game. They tend to stink up the game a lot. And honestly, I think they're stinking up this series big time. And not just because I'm a Boston Bruins fan. Go ahead and look at the numbers. Look at the power play numbers. Look at the penalty minutes right now. It's kind of one-sided. So I totally get it why Bruce Cassidy was bringing that up. But on the ice, I do think that they can step it up. I want to see more out of Marchand. I want to see more out of Berge, Patrice Bergeron. And I want to see more out of Pasta. You know, those are our leading players, our best players. Hopefully they can step it up in the last few minutes here of the second period and the third period to bring home a win. And even if they have to go to overtime like they had in so many other games, and it'll be exciting, but we have got to get it to Game 7 so we can obviously try to win. But it's just really one of those things where I think if they lose tonight, I think it's going to be one of those things where they look back at this series where they had a lot of opportunities and just didn't get it done.
I hate to keep news on this show. The Bruins are now down 3-1 to the New York Islanders. The Islanders scored another goal in the second period. This is painful that we're on the air. We're watching this unfold in front of our eyes. You know, the Bruins have enough firepower to come back, so they're not totally out of it, but this is not a good feeling right now. Tukka Rask has given up 3 goals. I'm now wondering, are they going to go back to Swayman again? You know, Swayman had a nice season as a rookie when he got thrust into action. And then, you know, the last game he got put in the start of the third period, did give up a goal, but then was pretty good after that once he got his bearings. So, you know, there were a lot of hockey experts and Bruins beat reporters and Bruins reporters in the New England area that were saying, I think you should start Swayman tonight because Tukka Rask, there's either something wrong with him or it's really hard for a goalie to get pulled in the game before and then just go right back in there. You know, it seems like Tukka, you know, especially in Game 5, just didn't seem right. And now we're seeing him give up 3 goals here in the first 2 periods of this Game 6, this do-or-die situation for the Bruins. Swayman might go back in. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't think he's in just yet, but that could be changed very shortly. One player that I want to see step up in this last 4 minutes and a period for the Bruins is Taylor Hall. I mean, Taylor Hall was such a big addition at the trade deadline, really gave the Bruins a spark down the stretch, had a nice first series in the playoffs. And then since then, again against Washington, but then since then, you know, he's got 2 points. I think he's got a goal and an assist, but he just doesn't seem to be having the impact he did against Washington in that first series. And in the games that they have lost, he just really hasn't shown up as much. You need to see that line with him and David Krejci. They got DeBrusk back tonight. I know he was making a few hits as he came back into the game. I'd like to see those guys step it up a little bit. Charlie Coyle has kind of been absent this entire postseason. We've seen him go on a scoring binge before. Maybe we'll see him do that again. They're really hurting on the blue line, though. When they use Brandon Carlo, who's not this, like, amazing defenseman, but he's a big body. You know, he's an experienced guy. He's a young guy, but he's played in a decent amount of postseason games for the Bruins. They're missing him right now, and it doesn't make their backline problems any better when they don't have him in there. So I don't know if he's ever going to be able to come back for Game 7 if they get there. Not looking good right now, but we'll see. I mean, this Bruins team can score. We know that. Marchand, Pasta, and Bergeron have been the ones to go on the scoring binges when they absolutely need it. We'll see if that line can produce once again here in Game 6.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to bring up Taylor Hall. You always do, and you're always right, though. I would love to see him step it up in these last few minutes and in the third period to help us out from that second line because you're right. I mean, we can't just really rely on the first line to get it done every game. And another thing is like I said, I think they've had so many opportunities that they didn't get it done. And game 5, especially, the Bruins outshot the Islanders. I believe it was 44-18, and they still lost the game. So it's just really one of those things where, like I said, I think when they look back at this series, if they lose it, they're going to say, man, we had all the opportunities and we just didn't get it done. And it's sad. But I think also Bruce Cassidy is going to have some questions to answer because he went with Rask here. And a lot of people were saying they probably needed to go with Wayman, but he decided to go with a veteran in Rask. So it's just really one of those things where I really want to know how Cassidy is going to go ahead and answer that. And we all know that, you know, when a coach makes a decision like that, it kind of puts him on the hot seat. But I don't want to see that happen. I like Bruce Cassidy. This might be the Bruins fans actually leaving the stadium that producer Ben's showing us right now. Because I know if I was, I'd be getting out of there really quick, especially in New York. And that's another thing, too. We talked about, obviously, earlier, the Boston and New York rivalry. I believe a couple of shows ago, I called these guys the Rangers. You know, Rangers, Islanders, who gives a crap? It's just another New York team. And whether or not, even if they beat us tonight, I'm still going to be a huge Bruins fan. And you know what? We'll bounce back and we'll come back stronger, and we'll just build the roster a little stronger for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's now 4-1.
Oh.
It's now 4-1. This sucks. Oh man, this is terrible. I don't know if Rask is still in net, but probably is. Hopefully he's out now. Swayman's got to go in for them to even have a shot. So, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but I wish they played Swayman tonight because you know, it just doesn't seem like Tuukka Rask is right. You know, and this might be it for Tuukka Rask with the Boston Bruins too. I believe he's a free agent at the end of the year. So, and they really like that kid Swayman. So we'll see what happens. But it's not looking good for the Bruins right now. There's still 1:50 left in the second period as of now. So there's still time left. There's a whole other period. Things can happen, but it's just not looking good. But I know, Brandon, with our last topic, we're going to talk about our other disappointing winter sports team here in Boston. So I'll let you start off with this one.
Yeah, the sulking Celtics. So we're going to kind of talk about what happened over the last week or two of them. And if you tuned into our show last week, I was pretty heated, to be honest, about the Celtics not defending the logo stomp for Kyrie. And I was pretty much calling for everybody to get traded. And like I said, I've kind of backtracked that a little bit. And I'm like I said, I'm willing to trade everybody except Tatum, Brown, and Robert Williams. But I think this team needs a shakeup. We talked about it earlier with them potentially targeting Dame Lillard, and I hope that's something that they're definitely doing in the summer. But I know we need some trades. We got the trade exemption. Earlier when we talked about Dame Lillard, you brought up Evan Fournier, and I gave this little, you know, sweep him away type moment because I really do want to see him get swept away so we can add to that trade exception because he really didn't give us much, honestly, this year. And then obviously the rumor has it is that, you know, Kemba is upset and Boston's upset with Kemba. And I think that's pretty much true. I think the Boston fans are even upset with Kemba. Obviously, he's a local guy. He played at UConn, and we've all loved him. But this proves even more how, you know, sports are what have you done for me lately. And Kemba Walker was supposed to be the big three, and it just really didn't pan out to be that way. And so we were playing with the big two all year, and that just didn't pan out for us. And obviously, we were in the play-in tournament, and we weren't supposed to be there. And it was just a really disappointing season for a young, talented roster that I think kind of underperformed. So I'm really looking to see what Brad can do now that he's the GM. And I'm looking to see, obviously, who he's going to hire as a head coach. And I know there's some great names out there, but I like Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is the number one guy I'd like to see get hired here. A great, you know, former player, knows the game, is a player's coach, can, you know, I know Tatum and Brown would love to play for him. Who wouldn't want to play for Chauncey Billups? Big Shot Billups, if everybody remembers that name. And so now it's just really one of those things where I think he could come in and fit perfectly, not only with this roster, but with the city of Boston and with our fans. I think everybody would love that. And I've heard a couple other names, but honestly, I don't even want to bring their name up because I love Chauncey Billups as the coach for this team. And so I'm hoping Brad does as well. But bigger than that, I need a roster change here. I need a roster change going forward. I need somebody to get traded. I need you to do something with that trade exemption. And yeah, if you can help Evan Fournier pack his bags, I say help Evan Fournier pack his bags and help Kemba Walker pack his bags. Unfortunately, you know, I'm still a big Kemba fan, but I just don't think it's going to play out well. And I think we've got a caller joining. It might be producer Ben.
Hey guys, it's producer Ben here. I got to weigh in on this topic. So I heard recently that Jason Kidd called off his interview with like another team because he's so interested in the Celtics job. And all I can say about Jason Kidd is I remember, with him and Pierce going head to head and stuff like that. I don't see any place for Jason Kidd here in Boston. And I know Chauncey Billups has had his like share of, tough games here in Boston, but like Jason Kidd was just such a punk here. So like Chauncey Billups, I respect. I'd like to have him coach. Jason Kidd, I could go without. So that's my 2 cents, guys. Keep it up. I'm gonna sign off here.
Yeah, so Jason Kidd did turn down an interview with the Portland Trailblazers. I don't know if that's related to possibility of Dame Lillard leaving Portland, or if it is the fact that he might be a front runner for the Celtics job. I hope that's not the case either. I don't want Jason Kidd. I don't see the fit, but who the heck knows? But I'm with you, Brandon. I want Chauncey Billups in here. Jackie McMullen was on a podcast with Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo on The Ringer talking about how great of a fit Billups would be for the Celtics if he came in. A lot of the guys at ESPN have talked about how Billups is really smart. He used to be on that pregame show on ESPN, and he actually wasn't great on TV because he's so calm, mild-mannered, and so thoughtful with his opinions and his basketball savvy that he wasn't like loud enough, and he wasn't just throwing out hot takes like Kendrick Perkins and guys like that, which to me sounds like a great coach. And supposedly, I don't know if it's when he went to Detroit or if he went to Denver later on in his career. He showed up there, first practice. They're about to do an out-of-bounds play. Chauncey's got the ball, and he's saying, what the heck is this? This doesn't make any sense. So then the coach is like, well, this is the out-of-bounds play. This is what we're doing. He's like, no, this isn't going to work. Let's do it this way. He changed the play around, and supposedly it worked out much better for that team when they used it in a game. So, he just seems like a very smart guy. Point guards always seem to be the position in basketball that turns into a decent coach. Look at Doc Rivers and some other guys across the NBA. So we'll see if that's the case. From what I understand from the Kemba Walker situation, what he has come out and said is very similar to a lot of NBA players are not sure how they feel about coming to Boston with Danny Ainge in power. What happened back in 2017 with Isaiah Thomas, where Isaiah, played hurt in the playoffs with an injury, messed up his hip, and Danny then traded him for Kyrie Irving. And I would have made that trade. As much as I loved Isaiah Thomas, I would have made that trade too. Kyrie's an unbelievable player. It obviously didn't work out for him, but I thought the trade was the right trade. Now you have Kemba Walker, who in this past offseason was rumored to be on the trading block as well, which just 1 year into his Celtics career. So he's now not feeling great with the fact that you look at Isaiah Thomas, what happened with him. Now he's hearing rumors that he might be traded in the offseason when he's got a bulky knee. He's another smaller point guard like we were talking about before, where you might not last the whole season, especially in your 30s. And he's now thinking that he's not appreciated in Boston. It's interesting because Kemba's not a loud guy. He's been great in the community. He comes into the team. The players on the team love him. He highly respects Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. He likes Stevens too. I mean, it just doesn't seem like – it seems like this is an Ainge thing. So with Danny Ainge leaving, now things are starting to come out about Danny Ainge a little bit. I think he's been a phenomenal GM, president of basketball operations, however you want to title him. The guy brought the Celtics one title. They probably should have won a second in 2010. And they have two pillars of the organization in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum because of the trade they made with the Brooklyn Nets. So you can't fault the guy for setting up this team. I think where Danny Ainge went wrong actually is 2019. You lost Kyrie Irving to free agency. Can't really do anything about it. You lose Al Horford, who declined his player option, got a huge contract from the Sixers. I wouldn't have paid Big Al that much money, even though I'm a huge fan of Big Al Horford. People think he's overrated. I think he's underrated. He went and got a huge amount of money from the Sixers. They never really replaced Al Horford. I think that was their biggest issue. They never had a big guy who was so good offensively at just moving the ball, helping ball movement. They never really filled that position. You lose Kyrie, And then they kind of just quickly were like, let's just sign Kemba Walker to a max deal instead of saying, well, maybe we should, maybe sign Terry Rozier to a smaller contract and see what he's got, or maybe go out and get another guy that we can move off his contract if he doesn't work here. And those are some of the things that Danny Ainge kind of screwed up in 2019, along with not having a great draft. 2019, 14th pick, they get Romeo Langford. The pick right before Romeo Langford was Tyler Hero. The Celtics love Tyler Hero. If Danny had just maybe packaged another pick from that year up a couple of spots, he could have got his guy, and you would have had at least a great scorer off the bench to complement your best players. Then he goes out, he drafts Matisse Thybulle later on in the draft, then trades him to the Sixers to add a pick later on. I think that was to get the Carson Edwards pick. So, now you got Matisse Thybulle playing heavy minutes for the Sixers as a really good wing defender, something the Celtics need right now. So 2019, I think, was Danny's biggest blunder as the president of basketball operations. It was time for him to move on. He's got health issues, so I don't know if he's going to try to go get a job out in Utah, where he's from, or if he's going to, just retire altogether. I think this, the fact that he left, it just makes total sense now. It wasn't just a quick thing, where I know we were talking about last week, Brandon, where we were talking about that thing from ESPN where he was mad about the Kyrie situation. The Celtics had been planning for Danny to leave for a little while now. The last couple of months, Danny and Wick Grossbeck and the owners group were actually talking about interviewing other general managers, and then they just so happened to not like any of the candidates, and that's why they were like, you know what, maybe Stevens can be this guy. Maybe Stevens, who's burnt out from coaching, can maybe be the president of basketball ops. So that's where we are. They got a lot of work to do. We'll see what happens. I think Stevens certainly is going to use analytics. One more thing, and I know I'm going long here, is that Mike Zarin, assistant GM with Danny Ainge, he's their cap guy. He's their guy that understands the salary cap. He's very smart, really understands the CBA. That's one of the things you worry about with Stevens, because he's more of the basketball side, not necessarily the contracts, the CBA. And you got a guy with him now that is going to be perfect for those type of situations. So I think Stevens is equipped with Zarin now, and I think they're going to form a good partnership to do something with his franchise. But they're going to make some moves, like you said.
Yeah, no, I'll close it out with a quick thought, and then I'll send it back to you for a closing. I think it's really one of those things where, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do together. Like you said, this Cap King, we'll call him that, this Cap King and Brad Stevens, and see what magic they can pull with this roster, because they've got to do something. And it's really one of those things going back to Kemba. I think if Kemba were to give us the Kemba that was in Charlotte, I think Boston would be happy. The Boston fans would be happy. We'd be getting our money's worth. We just didn't see that guy this season, and it could be because of the injury, and maybe he can get healthy again and bring that back, because I honestly would be the first guy to say keep Kemba Walker if he can get back to the old Kemba, but it's just really one of those things where I don't think we saw that this season. And then quickly, I think Terry Rozier, that would have been a great job to keep him. He really was tearing it up in that swap, basically. I mean, we got Kemba and they got Terry Rozier. So he went down to Charlotte and has really taken over Kemba's minutes and his role, and has really grown and torn it up down there. So it's just really one of those things where, some questions out there for Danny Ainge, but now obviously moving forward for the future, what can Brad Stevens do, and who is our next coach going to be? And I would really love to see it be Chauncey Billups, and producer Ben brought it up. He was the guy that we kind of let go, the big fish that we kind of let go, obviously. I wish he stayed in Boston longer. Then he moved down the road and won some titles in Detroit. Another guy they've been bringing up, though, quickly is Sam Cassell as well. I wouldn't mind Sam Cassell either. Played on those great teams in Houston with Hakeem Olajuwon, a guy that knows how to win, has been an assistant coach in the league for a long time. So I think those are the two guys that I think should be number one if we're looking to replace the head coach here for the Boston Celtics. And then quickly, one closing. This is totally different, but I've got to give big ups to Nikola Jokic for winning the MVP. I think it's just really one of those things where I think at the beginning of the season, if people were saying, hey, Nikola Jokic is going to be the MVP, I think a lot of people would have said, nah, I doubt it. And you know what I mean? He proved all the doubters wrong, and I think he deserves the MVP. And cheers to you, Jokic, for winning that.
No question. This past season, and Kemba Walker, and how, one of the reasons he might have struggled was because of the short off season. You know, the NBA season actually started sooner. Condensed season. I heard that Robert Ory on a podcast, who's one of the Lakers stations analysts out in LA, he said that the teams only had 19 practices this year. 19 for a 72-game season. So you don't have a lot of practices. So if you're a team like the Celtics, you got an injured Kemba Walker. You're relying on a ton of rookies and second-year guys in Romeo Langford, who was injured also, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith. You're relying on those guys. Grant Williams, who doesn't have a ton of experience still. You know, so that was a huge contributing factor to all these teams. You look at the playoffs right now. The 4 teams that were in the conference finals last year, 3 of them are out. Celtics, the Lakers, who won the title, and also the Miami Heat, who were in the finals. So that just shows you that season was just such a grind for those teams who went far into the bubble. You know, which goes to your Nikola Jokic point. I can't believe they're in the second round right now, because they went as far as the Celtics did. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year, and now this year you don't have Jamal Murray, but yet somehow Jokic has dragged this team to the second round of the playoffs. It's just been amazing. He absolutely deserves the MVP. So that's a great call and a great shout out by you, Brandon. So that's going to do it for our 10 sports topics here tonight, folks. I know we went a little long tonight, but a lot to talk about. Definitely disappointed in the Bruins right now. They still got a period left, so we'll see what happens. Miracles happen, especially on the hockey ice. Again, folks, you want to call into our show, check out that number at the bottom of the screen. You can call in, leave a voicemail, call into the show live, call into us anytime. Make sure you check that out. You can also follow us on Twitter. You see the Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen. And finally, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Comeback Sports, make sure you go on YouTube, hit subscribe. As many subscriptions we can get, the better. Really helps us out. Make sure you check out some previous videos that we've done. Our producer, Ben, does a great job cutting those up every week. So thank you, Ben, as always. And folks, thank you for joining us here on Comeback Sports. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.